Is it Flam time?
It looks like we might be ready for the big Flam, which is again, you have when you are involved with any one of these strokes. So it's really neat. I'll hip you to this. So, like if you watch the video that I put up last night, it's pretty amazing in certain ways, in that I know that I couldn't do that before. There's stuff that I can do now that I couldn't do, right? And that's why it's important to get on the drums and work shit out, and then start to come together and the whole thing. Because what we're really doing here is we're studying snare drum, not necessarily to march in the Thanksgiving parade. We're studying snare drum because we're studying snare drum because, as Richard Wilson would explain, is that the idea is to become a soloist, right? I mean, being a great time player should flow out of learning how to play your instrument to the point of being soloistic. But so being a great time player is awesome, but we're looking for more, you know? We really want to be able to play the instrument. And so what happens is you begin to develop, for instance, when you start to develop these strokes, they're either leading left or right, or they go back and forth. And you start to be able to split the mind in a sense, so that we're not right-centric or left-centric, right? Which is often typical. And it's something that I'm always working on. And so what I notice is I can play licks that normally I could only play leading right. Now I can mirror image it and lead left. And certain things come out because now the left is leading, and oh, the left is over here by this, and this hand will do this, and suddenly you're getting different sounds from your instrument. And so the strokes are really important because they help us not only even out our propensity to lead with one hand or the other, but they teach us the 7 basic strokes. And Richard Martinez had this conversation with Richard Wilson. I didn't, but he thought that perhaps it wasn't that we were learning the 7 basic strokes so that we could learn how to play the scales and arpeggios and the roll strokes. But in a sense, it's as if we were learning the scales and arpeggios and the roll strokes to learn the 7 basic strokes, which would lead us to being able to play music. So, and Richard sort of agreed with that. Whichever one comes first probably doesn't even matter, but it's interesting. And so what we want to do is start to get to know all of these strokes, because they will help us in those ways. Now, when we take a look at the closed Flam, already we have 2 of the 7 basic strokes, right? Because we're playing a right Flam, which means, and by the way, we haven't talked about this, so I should probably just tell you, but I mean, you've been playing for years and studied with other teachers. How would you describe what it is? What is a Flam? What's a Flam?
I guess I would say a Flam is a grace note that precedes a normal note, whatever it is. I mean, it could be an accent, but it's essentially a grace note followed by another note of varying amplitude.
Well, you see, and that's not wrong. And this is what happens when you're doing a master class or a clinic at a guitar center at MI. And you've always got the one guy. Yeah, oh, yeah, really. So you think, huh? Well, bring it on. Prove it to me. And you always got it. And then so you kind of have to know what you're talking about. And so the truth is always simple. Richard Wilson and Murray Spivak would call a flam one hand high and the other hand low. How simple that is. And that's true. Now, in this technique, one hand high, with regards to playing this flam, means we're going to make a throw. We don't have to. Chad Wackerman talks about that, where he holds one hand high. If you check Chad Wackerman in any of his Spivak educational videos, he's got one hand high. Go ahead and just have for fun, right? I'm kind of holding it up more.
Yeah, you got the elbow way up there.
I've come up. Yeah, so it's over the surface. And then I'm just going to drop the two. You get a flam. You do. One hand high, the other hand low. Right? And then he has it this way, and this way, and this way, and then you start to compel what becomes an upstroke and a downstroke. Because that's where this is going. Because ultimately, it's not only the two of the 7 basic strokes that we're learning, which is the throw and an appoggiatura, but as the thing speeds up, it turns into what Murray Spivak would call the single stroke. Okay? And the single stroke is going from an upstroke to a downstroke. He thought it was so important, so much part of this technique, that he actually aimed at a specific stroke, the single stroke. Okay, and he also talked about the downstroke and the upstroke. So those are two other, in a sense, you could say, well, now we've got another 2 strokes. But the single stroke is so important that he named it single stroke. Okay, so we're not going to be doing this, one hand high, one hand low. I think Dick Wilson used to say, yeah, you're teaching kids, it's like on a string. What do you do? He had some, if you're teaching a kid, maybe. And we don't want to lose the big kid in us, right? That's part of being a great artist, is to have that childlike wonder in everything we do. I'm wondering why I can't see your pad. I need you to move back a little bit, because I can't see your pad at all. We get busy talking, and I realize that, yeah, or you could just move back a little. Yeah, that's better. There you go. That's it. Okay, so we've talked about how to make a throw, or as Murray would call it, a downstroke. Okay.
I learned it a million years ago. The grace note is hardly a throw. It's just, half an inch away. And the main note, for lack of a better term, could be a throw, could be a wrist turn in the Spivak terminology.
The main note, or the core note, is if you're playing a right flam, it means that the left is the appoggiatura. Right? So in this technique, that, pardon me, that's typically true. I mean, especially what you said there. You don't have to play a flam with the throw, but with this technique, typically that's how we introduce the flam. So we want to really get to know what is this throw or downstroke. So we go up and we leave the beat down. We lead with the wrist. The forward bend of the wrist motivates the upward motion of the forearm, and as well releases any tension that are in the fingers. And as we turn, and how do I have that here? Let's see. I might. Okay, here I'll read you what because Dick Wilson go into the other room, to take a phone call, and you'd be sitting in the studio with the metronome going click, 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 and be gone for half an hour or longer, you know. And so I'd sneak into his red notebook, his famous red notebook. He'd come back, get out of there. And he'd say, I gotta have this stuff. And he'd leave it there, and he knew what I was doing, and I didn't get much of it. We're still trying to get a hold of, there's a student that has that red notebook, determined to get a hold of that red notebook, because we could do something really cool with it. But here's what Richard Wilson wrote about the downstroke. As the forearm starts down, the tip of the stick reaches its peak, maximum height. So I asked him about it. I said, why did you start with the down as opposed to the up? He said, it doesn't make a difference. And then he writes, the forearm, or sorry, the forward bend of the wrist, besides releasing the finger pressure, also motivates the upward motion of the forearm. Okay? So those are the words, but now can we feel it? Okay, so the forward bend of the wrist, besides releasing any tension in the fingers, also motivates the upward motion of the forearm. Yeah, that's not bad. Kind of like that, yeah, right. It goes up like this. And then as the forearm starts down, the tip of the stick reaches its peak, maximum height. There you go. It's a pretty good downstroke. Okay, now all you're going to want to do that in the left for me. Okay, pretty good. Yeah, you've got that. You've watched Vinny Caliuta play. He's got that motion.
I gotta watch more. I gotta watch.
Well, motion, yeah, you should. You should. And Google.
Of the Zappa plays Zappa band.
Whatever leads you to get to Vinny, I don't mind. Or if you find Carlos Vega playing with like Lee Ritenour, there's some great video. I mean, him playing with Abraham Laboriel on bass. I think they're in Japan. He's at the Baked Potato, and you can watch this stuff. Good for you. So yeah, you get this nice flexible. See if I can do it with my left. Okay, so all you're going to do. So what we're doing is we're making a little grace note, aggiatura, before we go up. See, one hand is low, the other hand is high. We're just looking for these simple motions, but what you're doing is there are two ways to approach this. There is turning a little bit to the ceiling, which you mentioned, for the appoggiatura. So my left will play the appoggiatura. It's turning, but as this thing really gets going, as you notice in the Murray Spivak Louis Belson video, when he teaches the single stroke, which is essentially what we're doing right now. Murray teaches Louis the single stroke, and he has Louis just make a tap. And that means, watch, I'm gonna hip you to this. That means that you're not even going to turn to the ceiling. Ah, interesting, huh? All you're going to do is, well, what do you do? What do you do when you make a throw? Don't you bend forward? Don't you bend forward? Go ahead and do that for me. But don't make a note. Just go to, now we're going to make it, there you go. See what you just did? Now Murray would say, as he says in the video, you're so close to the surface, you can't help but make a tap. You're right there. So it's really easy just to go, oh, I might have it by mistake. You see, we're not trying to make a note. It's as if we're just, you see, there's a distinction. There's the up motion, where you don't make a note, but you go up to make a throw. And then there's the upstroke, where you do make a tap. Okay, so can you go up in the right? Can you go up in the right without lifting to the ceiling first and just make a tap as you go up? How are you going to do that? Now see, now you realize why it's so important, because if you start up too high, now you're up here somewhere. We really need to have this floor established, 1/2 inch parallel beat to butt end. Better? Better? Stay with your right for just a sec. Let's not jump back and forth quite yet. Okay, so what we're going to do is just, what we do is we end up getting this little note, and the stick is just dangling there, right? Just for a minute before we go in the other direction. There. There you go. That's kind of the idea. See, you're not actually making a note on the up. Right. Can you do that in the other hand? Now, what's really important, Patrick, what's really important is that you don't start like this. You see, because now your up will be something else. We want to start really parallel beat to butt end to the playing surface. Mm-hmm. See, now you're very flat. Notice how flat it is? And you're just going to do that little bend forward, make a tap, and go down. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid to. It's not bad. Don't be afraid to cock to the ceiling a little bit more. We're going to cock to the ceiling. Yeah, man. Now, can you put those together and do that? Playing alternating flams. Okay, now, see, that's more of a challenge, isn't it? What you're going to want to do, it's not bad, by the way. First try, not bad at all. But what we want to do is you're really going to want to follow it up, you see. So it's going. See how smooth it is? It doesn't do this and wait for a minute and then go. Drops. It's very good. And what's really important as well is that we stop parallel beat to butt end, so that we're always starting from the same place. You'd have to stop here. See, you can see where this is going as dum and da 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 dum, dum and da 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 dum, and you get this nice relaxing up and down motion, which, as you can see, will be very useful in playing time on the drums. All kinds of ways. Okay, so you see that learning these strokes does make you a better time player.
Sure.
Okay, so
I'm bored.
With that,
I'm on board.
I knew. So put the metronome on at 40 and let's see what this looks like. Yeah. Well, let's find out, because if it's too slow, playing it up would leave you hanging out up here, perhaps. So let's just see. It's going click, 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 click. Ah, you can do it. Very slow, though, isn't it? Look at me. My traditional left, playing math. See, it's not that hard once you understand the concept. Even though I don't play palm down on the left very often, not that big a deal. You see how it's going to go? So really on this nice smooth. All one motion. There you go. See if you can put them together and maintain that. Go ahead. Remember, you have to have the ability to stop flat, parallel beat the butt end, and then maintain the discipline of just bending forward and following it up for a throw. A single stroke. Just bend forward in your left.
Yeah, I'll take some practice. I'm in an old habit of just dropping it, not bending.
What you might want to consider is just making downstrokes for a minute, because really it's going to feel a lot like this. Okay? It's just going to feel like that. That's all we're doing, really. And then I just happen to, as I go up, instead of just going up with a, oops, I led with my arm. Notice? Instead of just going up from the wrist, bending forward, making this particular kind of throw or downstroke. Now all we're going to do is just let it touch. See? I don't go like this to make a throw. Ridiculous. I just bend forward to make a throw. And that's all I'm asking you to do to get a note. There's a note there. Just go ahead and throw at that speed for a minute. Develop the muscle memory. No, but don't make a grace note. No appoggiatura. Just throw. Just clean throw. Note. Note. See, that'll be your note. Note. There's a note there. Note. Your left is leaving the bead down longer. Your left is better than your right. Go on, leave the bead down a little longer. So you have a chance to make a note if you want to. Don't go yanking it up quite as soon in the right. Leave that bead down as long as your left. There you go. Leave that bead down. Okay, now just let them touch as you go up. That's all you're doing. That's a good one. You lift it up first in the left. It's just like a throw. You just happen to bump into the pad. Discipline not to lift in the left. Just bend forward. You're just going to throw. Good. Not bad. We're getting a little bit of a distortion or a break up for a minute, but just lift. No, you don't get to make a note. So as if the note, particularly in the left, the right's doing better. It's funny because your left, when you just were throwing, your left was like really letting that stick hang there. It really came up, and there's a note there. There doesn't have to be a note, or there could be a note. It's essentially almost the exact same motion. Mm-hmm. That is so close. The difference is tiny. Go ahead and try that. Just in the left. So you're just going to go up, down, up, down. But let's see. What speed will we do here? Up. No, slower. Up. Play to the metronome as though you're playing quarter notes. Just in the left. Up. Up. Where's the up? You're making good downstrokes, by the way. What you're doing is good. It's just not what I'm asking for. I want up, down, in time with the metronome. Up, down. Ah, that's it. Let me give you one more thing.
Yeah.
Good. And I'll write that out for you because I think that'd be a good way for you to practice. Just each hand individually. And by the way, you see there's the chronology of the Spivak library. Mm-hmm. You've gone from playing up, right? The up and down stroke exercise. It's on the same page preceding it. right? See, look, up, down, up, down, up, down. Which is what we're doing right now. Up, down, 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 up, down. That's all we're doing. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. See? These motions will, you'll find them in a lot of the strokes, right? In one way or another. And so the more you really develop the muscle memory and the recognition of how these strokes are played, they'll all fit together beautifully. Like he says in the video, right? He says it makes the whole thing much simpler, right? And he takes Murray through the combination of how if you just do this, and then you do this, and then you add that, you see, and you'll have this stroke, and now you're going to add this, and now you'll have this stroke, and then you're going to do this, and you have this stroke, right? And then if you put them together like this, now you have this with triplet, and he just keeps taking you through this natural development or chronology of strokes. So, Dick was really, I think I showed it to you. He wrote it in stick control. He wrote it in his scripts constantly. Bottom of the beat on the upstroke. Kevin, you're getting your tip. You're getting the tip. You're leading with your arm. You're leading with your arm. If you lead with your arm, you're going to get the tip, which I saw just a little bit of. See, we're going to get, you don't want to lift up like that. It just starts with a bend. It starts with a bend. Yeah. It's just, look, watch. It's smaller than that. Watch. Yeah, look how little I moved. Yeah, just stop. Just go up and stop for a minute. You always want to come there. There. See how little it is? Now, all you're going to do is, as Richard Wilson would say, or Richard Martinez, or Murray Spivak would say, is you're going to follow that up. So you got to make that little tap just from, but if you go yanking it up, you spoil it. So you remember how little you moved? You just froze for a minute. I'm waiting for you to come back. There you are. Remember how little you moved and you had to stop?
Yeah.
Couldn't do that. No, you don't get to go up to the ceiling. You bend forward. There it is. But stop. You want to do this. What? Yeah, there. Wait there. Just do that. There. You know you're already up. You don't actually have to go up further. If things got really fast, or perhaps you wanted to stay nice and quiet, now stay with me, Patrick. Stay with me. I'm giving you some cool shit. Okay. If you just do this, look, I've gone up. Go ahead and do it again. And just wait there. There, you're up. No, don't yank it up, just bend forward and notice that you've gone up. Smaller. That's all it is, maybe even smaller. There it is. Okay, now stay there, stay there, stay there. No, don't go down. Stay there, stay there. Okay, you're up. You're at the very top of your throw. Miniaturized, right?
Mm-hmm.
What are they? Modified. So modified, very modified. I don't know if you can qualify the word modified, but we're up, potentially. Now all I want you to do is go the other way. See how little it is? Now, no, you didn't have to go up anymore. You're up. You're up. Yeah, now go the other way. It's a tiny throw. Just go up for a minute and wait, just for fun. Just stop, now go the other way. Don't have to lift anymore. There you go. There you go. Tiny. Now I want you to make a little tap and go up a little more and leave the bead down. Yep. First, it starts with the same small motion. Then you follow it up. Tiny, smaller than that. There it is. Follow it up now. Now follow that up. No, once you get to here, that tiny, follow it up a little more, and then make your blow. There. Just don't go yanking it. You got to get that first part of it, that tiny little thing. Nope. Smaller. Slow it down. Just get there it is, and then follow it up. Tiny? Nope. Yanked it. No, you got to get that first part of it. Tiny little bend. Just give me the first part of it again. Nope, too big. There, now follow it up. There, now follow it up. There you go. There, now follow it up. There, more like that. So I'm going to want you to work on that in each hand individually. That's for looking, see? There you go. It seems like a tiny little difference. It's a huge difference. Now you're getting the bottom of the beat. Really good, man. Now I'm going to give you one more thing. And you're doing it and you don't even know. And so maybe I shouldn't mention it because now you're going to intellectualize it. And don't pull a Kevin Crabb and turn one awareness with regards to the technique into the entire technique. It's one.
All right.
Okay. But you'll notice that when you do this, and again, see, Dick would say, release, squeeze, release, squeeze. And what did I do? Squeeze, release, squeeze.
Mm.
Bernie would say, loose, tight. And I'd go, loose, tight. In other words, I turn it into something less subtle than it really is. But if you do it properly, just notice what's happening. You'll notice that the hand naturally closes. As you bend forward, it tends to want to open up a little bit. Do it in the left, because you really had it in the left. We'll go to the right, just one. There you go. You feel how you're a little more closed? See how there's just a little release. As that little bend, that first little bend, there's a little bit of relaxation. And then the bead stops dead, doesn't it? It stops right as you land. The whole thing stops in a very holistic way. The whole thing involves never making a motion if you're not making a note. So once you make a note, there shouldn't be any motion. The hand closes, manages the recoil because the stick wants to go, yeah, but it doesn't. It goes, stops dead. There, see, so there's that little relaxation because of that motion. So you relieves the tension that might be building up. Now do it in the right. Give me that tiny little turn in the right. That little, no, remember how little it was? Just do it, stop for a minute. Turn there. Then you're going to follow it up. Follow that up. Follow it up a little more. There you go. Leave that bead down after you make that little tap. There it is. Now don't be afraid to cock your wrist to the ceiling just a little more. Just after, on the way down. There you go. Tiny tap. Good now. It's okay. So that's what this is. That's essentially what we're doing. Is we are we're making motions, right? So whether it's this, it's 2 up and 2 down, or whether it's this. Or whether it's playing doubles and roll strokes. Okay. Okay. Those motions are always going to be necessary. So they give us that relaxation as things really speed up, and potentially the system self-regulates, so there might be a little bit more pressure. Whatever it is, we can relieve all of that, making motions. Okay, so that's an insight now into what is a really big distinction with regards to this technique vis-a-vis other techniques. This technique uses up and down motions, and therefore, because we're making motions, we're making notes going in both directions. That's the concept of half the effort, twice the speed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We don't just play the violin going in one direction, although they used to. They learned they could play legato, they could play a long tone going in both directions. And that's what we're doing here. Okay? Yeah. I'll turn the recording off. Good job, man.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.